Welcome to Awesome Video Game Memories, where we talk about awesome memories about video games. I'm Ryan, and the game we're talking about today is Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. So I mentioned in the Castlevania Awesome Video Game Memories that I was afraid of everything horror back in the day. Like, I remember even the iconic vampire killer theme scared the shit out of me. So let's fast forward to the summer of 1992. My cousin brings over Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. And I'm like, oh, it's a Castlevania game! Give it away! Give it away! But my cousin's all, dude, don't be a pussy. Let's just play Castlevania 2. It's an awesome game. Like, you're totally missing out. Like, why the hell did you pussy out on the first Castlevania, you pussy? Yeah, my cousin was right to call me a pussy there. And everybody remembers the first Angry Video Game Nerd episode, well, back when he was called the Angry Nintendo Nerd. It was Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest.
This game sucks.
And I remember watching it and I was like, you know, I don't really agree with all this guy's points, but this was a pretty funny video. I wonder if he's ever gonna grow big. Yeah. Good job, James. And of course, I wasn't oblivious to Castlevania 2's existence. I mean, I read it in magazines. I read, like, you know, these villagers give you really terrible hints. I read that the game was, like, non-linear. You're kind of the precursor to Metroidvania. Basically, Castlevania 2 was the Zelda 2 of the Castlevania series. And also, the thing that really hooked me on this game when me and my cousin played it was the music. Like, everyone remembers how awesome the music is in this game, like bloody tears, man. Castlevania has some of the most iconic music in video games, like, ever. Like in Castlevania 1, you had Vampire Killer, but in Castlevania 2, you have Bloody Tears. And Bloody Tears is a theme that sounds so epically tragic, like, it's epic in a way, but it's tragic. Like, you know, it's tragic because Simon has a curse he has to deal with, and he has to beat Dracula. Like, just listen to it, man. And then let's not forget, what a horrible night to have a kiss! And also, let's not forget the music in the mansions, which actually does sound a lot different than most of the tunes in this game, but it surprisingly fits. And also the awesome music that plays when you're in the ruins of Castlevania. I admit, if I played this back in the day, all by myself as a kid, I would have been freaked out. I mean, I probably would have been freaked out at the night music anyways. And the super awesome theme when you're battling Dracula. Like, it sounds like something out of Ghostbusters. And now let's talk about the gameplay. Now, I do admit I did have the Nintendo Power Strategy Guide when playing this with my cousin. And as you know, Castlevania 2 is a very, very non-linear game. It's not like you go through levels 1 through 8. It's just like one big trek through Transylvania. Of course, the first item I bought was the Holy Water, because the Holy Water kind of acts as your secondary weapon for most of the game. And I remember just throwing Holy Water everywhere just to discover, like, secret passageways and shit. And Holy Water was definitely useful for finding all those false floors which really plagued the mansions. And just like Zelda 2, the clues given to you by the villagers aren't very helpful. Like, for the limitations of the NES, like, they're definitely very vague. I remember, kneel at this rock. Okay, kneel at this rock? Well, I didn't know I had to have, like, a jewel with me. And also I remember one of the hints was, hit your head on this rock to unveil something. I'm like, what? Yeah, even as a kid I couldn't decipher any of this shit. Thank God for the Nintendo Power Strategy Guide. And now let's talk about the mansions. Besides the really awesomely hilarious music, which actually has its own creepiness in a way, like, the mansions serve as the dungeons in this game, and you have to buy an oak stake in order to strike the crystal and get Dracula's body parts. And I remember when I first bought the oak stake, I thought it was a weapon. Like, I didn't look at the Nintendo Power Strategy Guide for this. I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy this oak stake. Whoa, this is like a cool flashing knife! I gotta raise all those hearts again, don't I? And actually, I remember looking at the back of the box, like when you go into one of the chambers with Dracula's body parts, there's all these skeletons hanging around. And I thought those skeletons were gonna drop down and attack you. Well, there's plenty enough skeletons attacking you, we don't need more. And each of Dracula's body parts helps you in a way. I like having Dracula's rib, and then you can use Dracula's eye to see hidden passageways. So let's talk about the bosses, or the lack thereof. There's only 3 bosses in this game. There's the Grim Reaper, there's the Mask, and then there's Dracula. And none of these bosses are really hard. Like, the Grim Reaper is super easy in this game. I mean, you can even just run past him. And then also the Mask. I think it's Camille's mask. Yeah, you can just run past that too. And even if you try to fight them, they're not very difficult to beat. And I also remember me and my cousin getting into an argument on whether we should buy the chain whip or wait for the Morning Star. I was like, no, let's buy the chain whip because the chain whip is going to be cool because you're like swinging a chain. He was like, no, my friend told me to get the Morning Star, and he was right, the Morning Star was a lot better. And the final battle with Dracula, or his decaying corpse, or whatever the hell he is, he looks like Skeletor in a blanket.
Yes, Simon Belmont. I'm Skeletor, Dracula's cousin. No, I'm actually Dracula. Fuck it.
And let's not forget, this one town you enter before you fight Dracula, this old woman is like, let's live here together. And I'm like, ugh. Reminds me of a trip to Transylvania I had once. Ugh. And so the final battle with Dracula. There's almost no way you can lose this. Like, by the time you get here, you'll probably have like all the items, the Morning Star. Yeah, what I used to do is I would just throw the dagger at him, but then my cousin showed me a faster way. You know, like there's these things called laurels that when you fire them on the ground and then they shoot up a flame, like you can just throw laurels at the center of the room and Dracula will always get hit. And you'll beat him like in 20 seconds or something. I'm like, okay, that's fast. And then once you beat the game, there are multiple endings depending on how much time you spent. I remember the first ending I got was the normal ending, and then I remember playing it again by myself, and I ended up getting the bad ending where Simon dies of his wounds. And then I played it again pretty recently, and I got the good ending because I figured out you can actually grind hearts into mansions, and it won't count against your night and day time. Isn't that great? And this time, unlike the first Castlevania, you have passwords this time, although the passwords get a little long, and I like the music. I do remember that I didn't have spare pieces of paper to write passwords on, so I wrote all the passwords in various guidebooks, like on blank pages. Yeah, I was stupid, I shouldn't have done that. I probably should have asked my parents for some paper. Yeah. So overall, was Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest really the black sheep of the series like the angry video game nerd described it? Well, I know James Rolfe was joking around and he does like the game, and there are things about this game, yes, that I don't like, especially, you know, the lack of clues, kind of the non-linearity of it, like you don't really know where to go if you didn't have a strategy guide. And a lot of the jumps in this game are just like, ugh, and all the false floors, but thank God you got the holy water. But I think my biggest gripe with the game is once you get the hang of it, it's way too easy. Like, you know, an easy Castlevania game is great. Don't get me wrong, because Castlevania is known for being balls to the wall hard. But Castlevania 2, it just lacked a lot of stuff. Like, it could have used a lot more bosses. Like, each mansion should have had a boss. Like, instead we get really easy Grim Reaper, the really easy Grey Mask, and that's it. Like, we could have had like Frankenstein in this mansion, or the Wolfman in this other mansion. Like, the possibilities were endless. But regardless, I still say Castlevania 2 is a really solid game, especially for the music. Yeah, so you can get Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest on the NES Classic Edition, granted you can find one, or you can just get it on the various virtual consoles till the end of time. Alright, so that wraps up this episode of awesome video game memories about Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, and if you have any memories about this game, make sure to leave those in the comments below. Take care.
Please support us at patreon.com/BattleGeekPlus.
Having fun? Well, you guys should totally go check us out at twitch.tv/BattleGeekPlus.